Well, winter is upon us, snow is on the ground, it's freezing fucking cold, and everybody got AIDS and shit. Yep, I'm talking about that movie today. It was a good 30 seconds that this video is monetizable. Needless to say, I have a very complex relationship when it comes to Showgirls. I first saw the movie many years ago in college when it was showing very heavily edited and neutered on VH1 of all channels. Why it was on VH1, I can't really tell you. The memorable soundtrack. And when I was watching it, I was thinking like, man, this is really kind of lame. Maybe it's not so lame when it's unedited. So I decided to seek out an unedited version of the film because I actually enjoy Paul Verhoeven films for the most part. There's a lot of over-the-topness and cheesiness that can be incorporated into his products, but at the same time he's able to have a little bit of a satirical edge, whether it's kind of having a little bit of a commentary on the deterioration of society in general, whether it's talking a little bit about opulence and class warfare, or whether it's about using some allegorical science fiction to demonstrate the benefits of fascism. What? Okay, it's kind of a mixed bag when it comes to Verhoeven and his themes, but I was really curious to see what the hullabaloo was about when it came to Showgirls. Up until then, I'd really only known it as this holy grail of terrible movie making. And so when I finally did see the NC-17 version in all of its quote-unquote glory, my response went from, this is lame, to holy hell, this is hilarious. I mean, it's not up there with Plan 9 or The Room. It is a competent, well-made film. Verhoeven knows what to do as a director, but the story, the characters, the plot holes, the major inconsistencies with characters, it was kind of a delight. And so every once in a while I'd revisit the film if I was in need of a good chuckle or just kind of a whole what the hell moment. If I needed some very memorable dialogue to stick in my brain like I used to love doggy chow, or just needed to be reminded that at one point someone thought it'd be funny for a girl to say Versace. But in the past year, with all the silences being broken on kind of the really dark, seedy underworld involved in showbiz and Hollywood, I began to look on Showgirls again and say, could this have really been something of a warning to us? Was Verhoeven actually trying to convey a serious message about the industry through this movie and give us kind of a heads up as to what the hell was really going on? Yes with a but, no with a however. Whether that was his intention or not, you could definitely argue, but it's not done well. And that makes it, depending on your mood, either unintentionally hilarious or soul-crushingly depressing. So needless to say, this is one of my more conflicted guilty pleasure treasures. For those of you who have never seen Showgirls and you want to be spared kind of having to actually view it, let me give you the lowdown. Elizabeth Berkley plays Nomi, this mysterious girl who hitchhikes her way to Vegas in order to make it big, and she kind of learns like how cutthroat the industry can be. She kind of learns like what she has to sacrifice with regards to income and with regards to her own integrity in order to make it in the biz, and she sees just how terrible everybody on planet Earth can be, except for the one lady who lets you live with her. Another way you could see it is imagine if Jessie from Saved by the Bell never really got off of her speed pills and hitchhiked to Vegas to seek out this random dream she had. Another way you could see it is imagine if Vegas is just an extension of the White Lodge from Twin Peaks and Coop is forced to live out a fantasy of being an emo haircut wearing douchebag all the time. Yet another and more general way to view this movie is imagine a scenario where a bipolar makes it to Vegas as a showgirl and is subjected to all of that town's sociopaths. And you pretty much have the movie in a nutshell. But with terrible, terrible lines and over-the-top production. And as I rewatched it recently, I was reminded of just how gaudy and lambastic it can be, but at the same time, some stuff was resonating a little bit more than it usually did in light of everything post-Weinstein. And then there were some scenes I just couldn't laugh at anymore because, This isn't too far off from the truth that's being revealed to us about Hollywood and the business, is it? Alright, before I start to get into kind of a more serious tangent, let's just say, if you like terrible disasters of cinema, this movie will satisfy you on that end. It's kind of hilarious. I feel one of the messages Verhoeven is trying to get across is this theme of how we as a society tend to exploit certain people. Yet this movie in and of itself is pure exploitation. Copious amounts of nudity, sexual perversities reign rampant, people treating each other like absolute shit, but done in such big, comically supervillain type ways that it doesn't really hit home too much. Until you start to realize that our real world actually has some of those comically over-the-top supervillains living in it. So yeah, Nomi's supposed to be our protagonist in this movie, but she does a lot of boneheaded things, and her character and moods flip-flop so inconsistently throughout the film that you can't really feel that bad for her in situations at times. Sometimes it is pretty easy because there are characters surrounding Nomi that'll be 100 times worse and not even try to conceal it. Say for example, anytime she has to meet up with Smith. And Smith, for the most part, in their early scenes, is something of a suave guy, an enigmatic guy. He knows a thing or two about dancing and feels he could show her some moves. She goes from being enticed and kind of flirty to extremely standoffish at the drop of a hat. And then the story's kind of like, yeah, this on-again, off-again thing isn't interesting enough. Let's just make him an asshole too. So she goes running into the arms of Kyle MacLachlan, who is clearly an asshole from the get-go, but he can at least conceal it with some degree of charm, and causes tension with her and Gina Gershon, even though Gina Gershon seems to be just a full-on psychopath who is just trying to make life miserable for everyone around her, because that's the way she made it in the biz, to the point where they kind of reconcile at the end, or connect halfway through, but then they're enemies again, and I don't understand. There are only 3 characters who garner any kind of sympathy from me throughout this whole movie, and none of them are really main characters. The first one is Molly, because Molly, God bless her, she puts up with so much from Nomi and is supportive and caring, and really you can establish that she really cares about this girl a lot and wants to help her, to the point where when she gets victimized in a very, what now can only be described as a brutal display of gang rape, I genuinely kind of feel really terrible now when I see that scene. And that is what I was getting to about this movie kind of being back and forth between being hilariously stupid and soul-crushing. So Molly, numero uno, that I kind of empathize with because, girl, I feel ya. This city and these people suck. To Nomi's den mother slash madam from her old strip club job and her old manager from that joint, who they first start off as just being crass and obnoxious, but then when they actually come and visit her at her production, they all of a sudden become like these sensitive and nurturing people who want only the best for her, even though he does end his interaction with her with the line, "Must feel good to not have people come on you." What? So yeah, I guess they're kind of sympathetic characters because they end up being nice to her without any agenda. And part of me, every time I watch this movie, feels as though, yeah, Verhoeven really wants us to give a crap about Nomi's situation. There are moments where you think he's really trying to communicate something about this character to us. And who'd have thought only 13 years later, Darren Aronofsky would somehow make this story a little bit more palatable for wider audiences by adding deep-seated psychological issues. So at times, Showgirls can really be something of a farcical, stupid romp. But then, in this day and age, with all these allegations and scandals breaking out surrounding people in the showbiz industry, there are points where it gets unbelievably uncomfortable. The aforementioned gang rape scene. When I first saw this film in its entirety and that scene came up, I wasn't shocked or really fazed by it because at that point I had just been seeing a movie that was just tonally all over the place, and this just seemed like yet another cog in that machine. It was uncalled for and unneeded, but it didn't quite resonate with me in the way I think Verhoeven wanted it to. And then when I came back to the film recently, after all this stuff about a lot of higher-ups doing very horrible, horrible things to people, that scene suddenly didn't seem quite so far-fetched. And that's what I'm getting at, is the big question here. Was Verhoeven actually kind of ahead of his time and just didn't know how to properly communicate the message of Hollywood and show business's sleaziness? Maybe, maybe not. Like, there's a couple of instances in this film that can kind of line up a lot with testimonials people are coming out with these days about producers or actors and people higher up on the entertainment food chain, and how these people are enabled by their higher-ups. Like, from the get-go, you know Kyle MacLachlan's an asshole, but he hides it behind a sophisticated and kind of charming demeanor, until he kind of breaks that wall a little bit and starts to become just another sleazeball. I don't know. I'm kind of at a loss for words, because this film truly is one of those maddening enigmas for me. Thankfully, though, I'm able to kind of shut off my critical thinking for the sake of a laugh here or there. But lately it seems like I can't enjoy those laughs without feeling some pang of guilt about, oh God, this really isn't that far from the truth. One thing, though, that always is consistently funny for me in this movie, the show itself that she's involved in, Goddess. What kind of show is this? This is on Satan's Alley staying alive levels of what the fuck. You've got your dancers almost completely nude, writhing around, leaping throughout scenery, and the scenery has no consistency whatsoever. One number takes place in a church with Gina Gershon as a topless Virgin Mary. Another scene is the beginning of planet Earth with volcanoes. And then quick smash cut to biker S&M Rocky Horror Picture Show sequence. What is going on in this show? I have seriously tried to figure out for myself what exactly would a storyline involving this be. And granted, I haven't been to Vegas, so I wouldn't know. Perhaps maybe this is the norm for a lot of stage shows there. But man, oh man, if that's the case, it's true. That place is just doused in cocaine. Another thing I kind of appreciate now is that I kind of wish Kyle MacLachlan was more in the backgrounds of the casinos as Dougie, just going around to the random slot machines. Like the very beginning, when you know Elizabeth Berkley's gonna lose her suitcase to this guy who just gave her a lift to Vegas. She's wandering around the casino, around the slot machines, and I just want Kyle MacLachlan as Dougie to be digitally inserted there at one of the machines going, "Hello!" That's a Twin Peaks The Return joke for all you people out there. Watch that show, it's actually kind of fun. So yeah, Paul Verhoeven's Showgirls. It's a guilty pleasure treasure for sure, because as much pleasure as I derive from its silliness and incoherent mess of a story, now I have pangs of guilt about just how close to reality that story might actually be. And I treasure that? I don't know. Sorry, my thoughts have been kind of a jumble throughout this entire video, but hey, I learned from the best. Right, Showgirls?